My name is Amina Hinda, coming to you live from our studios in Hargeisa. First, the headlines. Taiwan and Somaliland fight against COVID-19 together. Museveni is declared winner in Uganda as Bobi Wine vows to expose rigging. Al-Shabaab ransacks a village in Kenya as the governor cries for help for the second time this year. COVID-19 vaccines to be distributed according to population, says Ramaphosa. U.S. Capitol on high alert for possible Trump armed protests. To combat COVID-19 and highlight the importance of testing in the fight against the virus, the Thai-Doc Technology Corporation and 4Care Foundation have jointly donated a COVID-19 antigen rapid test for Somaliland. The tests, which have been certified by both Taiwan and the EU, can produce results in just 15 minutes.
Taiwan Representative Office, on behalf of Taiwan government and private enterprises, donated 6,000 COVID-19 antigen rapid tests to the Ministry of Health Development to support Somaliland proactively to combat the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. It shows the effort to integrate the strategic medical resources provided by the Taiwan government and private sectors to channel to Somaliland. Taiwan delegates who presented the equipment on behalf of the Taiwan government established that standing side by Somaliland in different areas is a way of solidifying the bond between the two countries, adding that COVID-19 is a common enemy not only for the Taiwan and Somaliland but also the entire universe.
Taiwan, since the establishment of this office, has been side by side helping the Somaliland to try to combat the COVID-19, especially all the materials, as you can see, and all the cash. Yeah, we also try to help in the future to try to help in some field of aviation. And sincerely, the cooperation between two sides will be more strengthened, especially in the medical field.
The Somaliland Minister of Health, Omar Ali Abdullah, expressed unreserved appreciation on behalf of the Republic of Somaliland for the health equipment provided to fight the pandemic, adding that this will strengthen the country's health system. Ali said the technical assistance will go a long way in keeping the name of Taiwan in the heart of many Somalilanders as the relationship is waxing stronger by the day.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the government of Taiwan for its technical and material support, and we believe that it is very important that we don't only expect from Taiwan supplies, but also we expect that a technical transfer, and that's the sustainable actually asset that will help our people develop and our health system become stronger. And that will also create a long-lasting effect on the health of our citizens. Taiwan and Somaliland share similar history, and we share similar challenges, and we hope that both of us will overcome these challenges in the near future through collaboration, through commitment, and through the exchange of ideas and knowledge technically regarding the materials and regarding the cooperation in the political and diplomatic areas.
Taiwan has been side by side with and supported Somaliland to combat COVID-19 by donation of the medical equipment including high-quality masks, protective clothes, PPE, infrared forehead thermometers, infrared thermal imagers, which can detect multi-body temperatures, high-quality PCRs, and reagents, as well as quality rice to relieve the food shortage caused by COVID-19 and fund for disaster relief. This singular gesture and many others are a symbol of deepening their diplomatic ties as Somaliland opened a representative office in Taiwan late last year, returning the favor for Taiwan's office in Somaliland, which opened beforehand.
And at home today, the leaders of the three national parties in our country have jointly welcomed the decision of the Electoral Commission to set the term for local council and representative elections in the country.
Addressing the media in Hargeisa, the leaders of the three national political parties jointly sent a message to the Somaliland Senate to reconcile the election deadline, as they have already issued an extension. The Minister of Interior and the Deputy Chairman of the Kulmiye Party, Mr. Mohammed Kahin Ahmed, said the three jointly welcomed the decision the Electoral Commission proposed by the parties and the President of Somaliland. Meanwhile, the Deputy Secretary General of the UID Party in Somaliland, Mr. Abdi Nasir Qadah, who also addressed the 2-year dispute that delayed the holding of the elections in Somaliland, said that Somaliland has succeeded in holding peaceful parliamentary elections in the country. Also, the interim chairman of the Wadani Party, Mr. Abdelkader Jirde, said that he welcomes the Commission's proposal to set the election date, adding that the three parties have agreed to a request for the Somaliland House of Elders to agree on the official date of the election.
In northeastern Kenya, few days after the Mandera Governor Ali Roba called for government action on the region following increasing cases of attacks, the militants on Saturday ransacked a village in the region, leading to fierce gunfight with security forces. Reports indicate that Al-Shabaab militants and the Kenya security forces fought at the Wako Dadacha village in Banisa sub-county of Mandera, leaving one civilian dead and another critically injured. About 5 hours of fighting. Banisa is located almost 150 kilometers west of Mandera town and is one of the regions which is considered safe given the distance from the Kenya-Somalia border, where Al-Shabaab militants are said to be in control. This is the second attack in the region in as many months. The incident comes a few days after Governor Roba claimed that over half of Mandera is now under Al-Shabaab. He added, despite the presence of security forces, things aren't in good shape and the government must act immediately.
Everything I have literally asked for Mandera in terms of security have been provided, but there are still gaps in terms of security provision. We have more than 3,000 security forces in this town, in this county. But Al-Shabaab have had access to areas they have never previously accessed.
The team is collecting zakat from locals besides unleashing terror. Time has come for the government to make security a priority in this region. But the government has refuted claims on Saturday, arguing that the security officers have managed to drive Al-Shabaab from the region. According to the government, the Al-Shabaab has since crossed over to Somalia following spirited operations within the northeastern region. Contrary to the governor's claims, since 2013, Mandera County has registered steady gains through our security forces, who have been repulsing and deterring threats to lives and property, the Northeastern Regional Coordinator Nicodemus Ndalana said. Mandera, Wajir and Garissa remain Al-Shabaab hotspots, and in the last 10 years, several civilians, especially non-locals, have been targeted by the militants.
More than 50% of this county is under the control of Al-Shabaab in terms of roads infrastructure.
The Ugandan Electoral Commission has declared President Yoweri Museveni as the winner of the highly anticipated presidential election amid accusations of voter fraud by his main rival Bobi Wine.
The Electoral Commission declares Yoweri Museveni Tibuhaburwa Kaguta elected President of the Republic of Uganda.
The Uganda's Electoral Commission has declared President Yoweri Museveni as the winner of the highly anticipated presidential election amid accusations of vote fraud by his main rival, Bobi Wine.
That is absolute fraud. It is a lie. Whatever the Electoral Commission is announcing has no connection whatsoever with the results that are coming in from the polling station.
Museveni won almost 59% of the vote, with Bobi Wine emerging as runner-up with about 35%. 76-year-old Museveni has been in power for 35 years and campaigned for another term, arguing that his long-term experience makes him a good leader. While speaking after the election, President Museveni said that the poll was free and fair and declared further that it is one of the most credible in the history of the African nation.
I will not address the political, economic, and social factors that one could see in these elections. These elections are actually very good. I'm very happy with them myself. because they are taking us into the realm of real politics.
However, the opposition leader Bobby Wine has promised to provide evidence of vote rigging when internet connections are restored across the country. It will be recalled that the government of Uganda had earlier shut down the internet ahead of voting day, a move condemned by the election monitors and the opposition parties. Earlier on Friday, Wine claimed victory in the presidential elections, having rejected early results and called the process a complete sham. He told journalists that soldiers had beaten a security guard before taking up position around his house. The poll followed one of the most violent campaigns in years, with harassment and arrest of the opposition, attacks on the media, and scores of death. The streets of the capital, Kampala, are largely empty as residents fear an outbreak of violence. Earlier this week, the US, a major aid donor to Uganda, cancelled its diplomatic observer mission to the country, saying that the majority of its staff had been denied permission to monitor polling sites. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBATV.
The African Union chairman and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has disclosed that millions of coronavirus vaccines secured by the continental body will be allocated according to each country's population first.
Humanity requires that.
The African Union chairman, Cyril Ramaphosa, has disclosed that millions of coronavirus vaccine doses secured by the continent body will be allocated according to each country's populations.
We therefore need to move swiftly to ensure that everyone has access to the vaccine once it's developed at the same time.
The African Union chairman, who is at the same time the president of South Africa, said that vaccines from Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca would be available this year, but he did not specify how much each African country would get. So far, no African countries have begun large-scale vaccination campaigns. However, the 300 million vaccine made available to the African Union would only cover around 10% of the continent's 1.3 billion people if administered 2 per person. While speaking further on the AU's plan to get more vaccines to cover the continent's large population, Mr. Ramaphosa suggested that the AU would secure vaccines from China to combat the virus. Earlier in the month, CBATV reported that the African Union secured almost 300 million COVID-19 vaccine doses for the continent. Many African nations are relying on COVAX, a global initiative to ensure equitable access to vaccines. However, the AU's 300 million doses will come from other sources. South Africa itself plans to access doses via 3 sources: the AU arrangement, the COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access Facility, COVAX, co-led by the World Health Organization, and direct deals from manufacturers. In the fight against the virus, many African countries have been praised for waging an effective campaign to combat the spread of coronavirus, despite their reputation for having fragile state health systems. A recent continental study by Partnership for Evidence-Based Response to COVID-19 Case Fatality Ratio (CFR) revealed that COVID-19 fatalities in Africa is lower than the global figures, suggesting the outcomes have been less severe among African populations. So far on the continent of Africa, 47 countries have recorded over 2.2 million infection cases and 24,464 fatalities. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBATV.
And in Sudan, the deputy of the Sovereign Council in Sudan, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, arrived in the Chadian capital on Saturday with an accompanying delegation including Foreign Minister Omar Kamar al-Din and the head of the General Intelligence Service, Jamal Abdul Majid.
He briefed Chadian President Idris Deby on the progress of implementing the peace agreement signed between the Sudanese transitional government and the armed movements, the FM said in press statements. Qamar al-Din said both sides discussed the situation in the Central African Republic and Libya, as well as the border dispute between the Sudanese and Chadian tribes, and mechanisms to address them. They further discussed means of bolstering bilateral cooperation and political and security issues that would push forward both countries' and people's interests. The official report did not mention the goals of the successive visits of high-ranking Sudanese officials to N'Djamena. However, media reports said the border dispute between Sudan and Ethiopia topped the discussions. Khartoum seeks regional support for its positions, especially since Addis Ababa will host the African Union Summit in February. Hemedti's visit to N'Djamena came 5 days after a similar visit that was headed by a member of the Transitional Sovereignty Council, Ibrahim Jabbar, and his delegation, which included Minister of Defense Lieutenant General Yassin Ibrahim Yassin and Qamar al-Din. Parties discussed the course of bilateral relations and means of boosting cooperation to serve both countries' interests. According to a Sovereign Council statement, over the past few weeks, Hemedti visited South Sudan and Eritrea, which indicates undisclosed consultations. The spokesperson of the Sovereign Council, Mohammed Al-Faki Suleiman, said that Khartoum is carrying out extensive diplomatic efforts to explain the situation with Ethiopia to regional countries. It seeks to clarify its position, which rejects war and adheres to controlling all Sudanese lands, including areas where the Sudanese army have been redeployed. Ethiopia, however, has accused Sudan of assaulting its territory and exploiting the war it was fighting in the Tigray region. On Friday, Suleiman told reporters that his government did not want to increase tension by issuing media statements. Sudan did not want an escalation that would lead to a war with Ethiopia, he stressed, noting that its army was only deployed after the withdrawal of the Ethiopian forces that were stationed in its territory due to the fighting in Tigray.
The top United Nations official for Libya said an advisory committee for representatives of the country's different regions has proposed a way forward for choosing a transitional government that would lead the war-torn country to election late this year. The talks in Geneva, structured around the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum, have been taking place amid a heavy international push to reach a peaceful settlement to Libya's civil war. The UN acting envoy for Libya, Stephanie Williams, told a press conference in Geneva that the advisory committee's members have met their responsibility with a constructive spirit, cooperative efforts, and a great deal of patriotism. The committee is part of a 75-member forum that represents all the three main regions of Libya. The 18-member committee has proposed that each region's electoral college name a representative to a 3-member presidential council. Ms. Williams said that the forum would resort to lists formed by Libya's 3 regions, with each list consisting of 4 names nominated for the presidential council and a prime minister position. She said a list should obtain 17 endorsements, 8 from the western region, 6 from the eastern region, and 3 from southern Libya. Ms. Williams said the forum would vote on the proposed mechanism on Monday and the results are expected the following day. The transitional government would be a temporary unified executive staffed by Libyan patriots who want to share responsibility rather than to divide the cake. The United States welcomed the breakthrough and urged all parties of Libya to work with urgency and good faith to establish an interim government. The forum, which is part of the United Nations' efforts to end the chaos that engulfed the oil-rich North African nation after the 2011 overthrow and killing of Muammar Gaddafi. It reached an agreement last year to hold presidential and parliamentary elections on December 24th of 2021. The oil-rich country is now split east to west between 2 rival administrations, each backed by an array of militias and foreign powers. The warring sides agreed to a UN-brokered ceasefire in October in Geneva, a deal that included the departure of foreign forces and mercenaries from Libya within 3 months. No progress was announced on the issue of foreign forces and mercenaries since they inked the ceasefire deal almost 2 months ago. In Indonesia, the death toll of the quake has hit 56 as rescuers race to find survivors. 2 days after Friday's disaster, it is unclear whether people are still trapped but alive under the debris.
More than 820 people were injured and about 15,000 left their homes after the 6.2 magnitude quake struck in the early hours of Friday, according to a disaster mitigation agency, PMBP. Some of the Banaka residents sought refuge in the mountains while others went to crumbled evacuation centers. Rescuers have spent days hauling corpses from beneath crumbled buildings in Memojo city of 110,000 people in West Sulawesi province, where a hospital was flattened and shopping mall lie in ruins. Others were killed south of the city, and aerial images from the devastated seaside city showed the buildings reduced to tangled mass of twisted metal and chunks of concrete, including the regional governor's office. Authorities have not given figure for how many survivors have been rescued. A pair of young sisters blocked from under the mass of concrete and other debris were treated in hospital. Meanwhile, corpses were recovered from under collapsed hospital, while 5 members of the family of 8 were found dead in crumbled remains of their home. The 1,000 left homeless by the earthquake took to makeshift shelters, many little more than traveling covered tents filled with whole families that were lashed by heavy monsoon downpours. They said they were running low on food, blankets and other aid as emergency supplies were rushed to hard-hit region. Many survivors are unable to return to their destroyed homes or were too scared to go back from violent tsunami sparked by aftershocks, which are common after strong earthquakes. We hope the government can deliver aid soon, like food, medicine and milk for the children, he added. The earthquake epicenter was 36 kilometers south of Mamuju and it had relatively shallow depth of 18 kilometers. Straddling the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, Indonesia is regularly hit by earthquakes.
And 10 days after rioters breached the U.S. Capitol in a deadly attack that stunned the world, cities in the United States are gearing for a potential new wave of violent protests, erecting barriers and deploying thousands of National Guard troops around the country. The FBI has warned police agencies of possible armed demonstrations outside all 50 state capitol buildings through President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th, fueled by supporters of President Donald Trump who believe his false claims of electoral fraud. Michigan, Virginia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania and Washington were among more than a dozen states that activated their National Guards to strengthen security. Meanwhile, downtown Washington, D.C. was virtually empty, with streets near the Capitol closed and battalions of camouflaged National Guard soldiers taking up positions across the city center. The nationwide security scramble followed the deadly January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol by a mix of extremists and Trump supporters, some of whom called for the death of Vice President Mike Pence as he presided over the certification of Biden's election victory. The Democratic leaders of 4 United States congressional committees said on Saturday they have opened a review of the events and had written to the FBI and other intelligence and security agencies, asking what was known about the threats, whether the information was shared and whether foreign influence played any role. In a nod to both the coronavirus pandemic as well as security concerns, festivities around Biden's inauguration will largely be held online, though the president-elect still plans to be sworn in and deliver his inaugural address at the Capitol. The joint intelligence bulletin produced by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security and National Counterterrorism Center further warned that false narratives about electoral fraud would serve as an ongoing catalyst for extremist groups. Thousands of armed National Guard troops were on the streets of Washington in an unprecedented show of force after the assault on the U.S. Capitol. Bridges into the city were closed and the National Mall and other U.S. iconic landmarks were blocked off into next week. Some militia across the country have told their followers to stay home this weekend, citing the increased security or the risk that the planned events were law enforcement traps. That's all I have for you for now. Good evening. Thank you for staying tuned. My name is Amina Hinda.